No, thank you.
So that's a video that's part of a series that have been produced by Birmingham Safeguarding Board, but just talk about who's in charge, about being aware of talking about alcohol use and the increased risk of sudden infant deaths. It's about talking with families about the increased risk and how they're going to manage that. It's not about a blanket ban on you must never drink alcohol, but you know, if you are going to a wedding, mum's got a night out planned, or whatever, who's going to be the one that takes responsibility for being the one that's caring for the baby, and to acknowledge that if you've had a couple of drinks, you're not going to be the one that's safe to care for the baby. I think that's the way to raise these issues with families, is to talk about the increased risk and ask them to just think about and consider how that they would manage that if that was something that's likely to happen. So there was a publication in July 2020 which is called Out of Routine, a review of sudden and unexpected death in infancy in families where children are considered at risk of significant harm. So that was a review of 40 cases of infant deaths in families that were particularly vulnerable, possibly where there were concerns about neglect, domestic violence, parental mental health issues, substance misuse. But they looked at 40 incidents, and actually almost all of them, 38 out of the 40, involved co-sleeping in unsafe environments, often when the parents had consumed alcohol or drugs. So that just shows that that because of something happening that was out of the normal routine, whether it was something a nice out of routine, a family celebration or something, or whether it was in an more of an emergency sort of situation, but something had happened, and unsafe sleep practices had been followed. The background in that of that publication and review showed that families who had got recognised background risks such as deprivation or overcrowding at heightened risk of losing the baby to SUDI, and that we need to have a flexible approach about prevention. So it's about how we can best support parents in families where there might be an increased risk, where there's those associated factors that we've just looked at are present, to give them information about how they can ensure that their baby is sleeping in a safe way and sleeping in a safe way for every sleep. So about making sure that we're sharing the information in a way that is meaningful for them. The review found that the deaths could have been prevented if safe sleeping advice had been followed. And it wasn't necessarily that safe sleep advice hadn't been given, but the parents hadn't been able to engage fully with the advice, that it might have been the out of routine event that heightened the risk. And that's why it's really important. And the review concluded that successful approaches to preventing sudden unexpected infant deaths were multi-agency and were consistent messages through the different agencies, and also dealt with the underlying concerns as well, and that we need to have understanding of the parents' perspectives and be able to build positive relationships for them so that they trust the advice that's given to them by professionals. So we're going to look at a little video here, which is going to just illustrate a little bit about parents' perspective about the information that they're given, and really gives you something to think about how important it is that about the messages that we're sharing and how we're sharing them. So this is Lauren's story. I can just find the right little video clip.
I'm Lauren Scully and I am 23. It was just after my 18th birthday and I found out I was pregnant. Me and my boyfriend were very happy. There was no problems throughout the pregnancy. I set up my first home as well, ready for Archie to come. A health visitor come for his first check. She went through everything she needed to go through, and then she gave me a leaflet about cot death, and she told me that it was nothing to worry about and it was rare, but she just had to tell me anyway. He was getting his little personality and his character. He was starting to like have his own little laugh and his own smile, and he used to pout as well. I woke up around 7 o'clock and I thought, oh my god, Archie slept through, like this is the first night he slept through. And when I looked and turned at him, his nose was bleeding, and I thought, oh, his nose is bleeding, and then I noticed that his mouth was swollen. So I tapped him to wake him up, and he didn't wake up. And that's when I started screaming. I couldn't control myself. My sister had to give CPR, so I was asking the ambulance driver what had happened, and he couldn't tell me. So when I arrived at the hospital, the nurse said, Archie needs you, and I thought, oh my god, like that was so close. I thought I'd lost him, and when I went in, I actually had lost him, and we were called to a room, and we were told that we probably wouldn't get an answer to why it happened. We done a christening and a funeral. That was a few weeks later, but an autopsy had to be done first. There was no results from that, and that's when it was decided it was sudden infant death syndrome. 6 months later, I went to Coroner's Court to get Archie's death certificate, and I was told by a doctor that I should never have co-slept, and if I wasn't co-sleeping, there would probably be a chance that it would never have happened. And if I was told this in the first place, I obviously would never have co-slept. Looking back to when I was 18, I was really scared about cot death. I didn't really want to know anything about it because obviously I'd been told that it wouldn't happen, so what was the point in scaring myself? So I've got another little boy now, Tom, who's 3. I wanted to tick all the boxes, so I decided to breastfeed Tom, and I was told by the midwives the best way to breastfeed is to co-sleep, and I was given a leaflet about co-sleeping. I was told by a breastfeeding specialist group to co-sleep as well, and when my district midwife, who had been with me throughout the pregnancy, when she seen me a day later at home, she immediately took the leaflet off me and said just ignore that. I would like to ask health professionals not to give mixed messages, especially because young people have got a lot of trust in them and their advice, and also not to hold back on the truth, not to say cot death is rare because it's not, and it does give young people a false sense of security.
So I think that video makes you think a little bit about how you might talk about things in practice and how that might be perceived by families. So these are the NICE guidelines for postnatal care. So they were published in April 2021. So they're pretty freshly updated. So there is a section in there that talks about safer sleeping and recommendations on bed sharing. So what the NICE guidelines say is to discuss with parents safer sleeping for bed sharing, including making sure that the baby sleeps on a firm flat mattress face up, not sleeping on a sofa or chair, not having pillows or duvets near the baby, not having other children or pets in bed when sharing the bed with the baby. Also, strongly advising parents not to share a bed with their baby if their baby was low birth weight, if either parent has had 2 or more units of alcohol, smokes, has taken medicine, so that might be prescription drugs or over-the-counter medications that cause drowsiness, or has used recreational drugs. And that, again, it's about giving that information to families, acknowledging the fact that we know that half of babies are probably going to be brought into the parents' bed at some stage, but ensuring that that occasion that they're brought into the parents' bed isn't when any of those additional factors are present, so that if the baby is taken into the parents' bed, it's in the safest possible manner. So this is information from the Lullaby Trust. The Lullaby Trust are a charity that promotes safer sleep for babies. They also give support for families. There's the website is really good. Lots of resources on there that you can access. I would advise you to have a look there. You can also contact them by telephone or email about specific concerns. You can also direct families to contact the Lullaby Trust as well. But this are the advice the Lullaby Trust advise that you follow. So the things that they advise that parents do for their baby. So always place the baby on their back to sleep. Keep baby smoke free during pregnancy and after birth. So that's not just mums smoking during pregnancy, it's also, other household smokers, visitors to the home, avoiding smoky environments with the baby. Placing baby to sleep in a separate cot or Moses baskets in the same room as parents for the first 6 months. Breastfeeding, because that there is a decreased risk of SIDS in breastfed babies, and using a firm, flat, waterproof mattress in good condition. On the other hand, the things that they advise that you should avoid doing is never sleeping on a sofa or armchair with your baby. Definitely not sleeping in the same bed as your baby. If you smoke, drink, take drugs, if your baby was born prematurely, or if your baby was of a low birth weight. Avoid letting your baby get too hot and not covering baby's face or head whilst they're sleeping, or using loose bedding that could accidentally cover the baby's face or head. And obviously it says there as well, follow the advice for all naps, not just for nighttime sleep. So we're going to look at some of the equipment that's available. So there's loads of equipment available on the market that's sold as sleep aids, things that might help to settle your baby, help your baby to sleep for longer. You might be asked about what equipment that you need. Parents might ask about what equipment that they should be buying. They might have already purchased things or been given things. They might be asking for things to be sold within